Welcome to Reshape. Welcome to Reshape Your Life. I'm your host, Jason Atkinson, and my guest today is Ada Ramos, a metabolic health practitioner, nutrition coach, and certified personal trainer. Ada, welcome to the show.
Oh, I am so excited that we reconnected again after having
Awesome.
met, wow, what, 3 years ago on
Yeah,
Clubhouse? And
yeah,
we
that's been
connected
about 3
again.
years ago.
Yeah. And interesting how we reconnected. We're doing both, we're running a challenge that are very similar. So,
Exactly,
oh, let's talk about this.
exactly. Yeah, so we're going to have a keto conversation today. Okay, so before we dive into that, just give us a little bit of your background. How did you get into the health and fitness world, and in particular about this very low carbohydrate or ketogenic approach? What was it about that compelled you to try it and to use it now successfully with clients as well?
Yeah, well, I am your typical Latina in the forever search to be skinny. So I was just looking for the next magic pill. And I remember clearly bumping into a nurse at the hospital. I work at a cancer hospital, and she was like half her size. I'm like, girlfriend, what are you doing? And she was telling me, and she said this, now looking back, she meant it. She was serious, but I thought she was joking. She's like, well, I eat a lot of butter. And of
That
course,
sounds good.
the moment she said that, I tuned her out. No, thank you. Not to realize that 2 years after that, I would encounter this way of eating again. I got a hysterectomy, after I have lost 30 pounds, I gained all the way back. And I enrolled into this gym, and they were, it was a 6 weeks challenge. You have to work out for like 5 days a week. And the protocol that they were using as the dietary protocol was the ketogenic diet. So this is the second time I hear the word ketogenic. And at that point, I'm like, these people would not be endorsing this way of eating if they were killing people. And because then I reminded myself of this nurse, she works in oncology. I'm like, she wouldn't be doing that either if it was bad for your health. So I signed up, started doing the workouts, felt like misery while I was doing it. And I'm like, what is it about this way of eating? And out of fear, because to be honest, it was fear of doing something harmful to my health. I was already 36 at the time, 36, 37 at the time. I'm like, I need to be a little bit more responsible. Before in my 20s, I couldn't care less how I lost the weight. Let's just lose the weight. But here I'm like, gosh, this does not sound healthy. And then pair that up with the fact that I was feeling so crappy. It got me into this, I need to learn about this. So I started reading about the ketogenic diet. And oh boy, what I was learning, I mean, my world just went upside down. And almost 10 years later, I am a huge advocate. It's what I teach. It changed my life. It has changed my client's life. I realized that, yes, although we can be sugar burners, the body can also run on fats, and very efficiently so. So I became obsessed with nutrition after I opened this world of ketosis, and I became a certified personal trainer, nutrition coach, double certified as a nutrition coach, because I'm just, like I said, obsessed with all things nutrition and the power of food and lifestyle changes. So fast forward, I now preach that. It's what I get my clients to do. I am a accredited metabolic health practitioner. So what does that mean? I have an affinity to work with people that have metabolic conditions, specifically diabetes. Diabetes is my wheelhouse. Most of my clients are either pre-diabetic or diabetic. And of course, that comes along with hypertension most of the time, and obesity, and lipid dysregulation. So everything that composes metabolic syndrome. So that is my background, how I got here. It was just looking for another way to lose weight. And out of fear that I was harming my body by eating all of these fats, I started learning about nutrition and how this way of eating is actually not too shabby. It's actually, I would argue, very effective and better than being a carb burner most of the time.
Yeah, and you use that phrase, sugar burner, carb burner. I want to explain to everyone who's listening. That's what's so radical about this approach. It's not just lowering the amount of calories that you're taking in, it's shifting your metabolism from using one source of energy for an entirely different source of energy. Some of that not feeling so good initially that you talked about, that's part of that transition. What people are experiencing is withdrawal symptoms similar to withdrawing from a drug or any other addictive substance
Exactly.
from not having the glucose that they're accustomed to. Most of us throughout our entire lifespan, we have been conditioned to think this: sugar for energy, carbs for energy. And we've heard it over and over and over. The science behind the ketogenic diet is so super simple. And that's another reason why I think it's so effective. Carbohydrate is an energy source. Fat is also an energy source.
Mm.
Your body is going to prioritize burning carbohydrate or storing it to get it out of your bloodstream. So if you simply lower or eliminate that source of energy, even temporarily, you shift over to burning your other fuel that you have available, which initially might be dietary fat. But as time goes on, you're going to be burning more and more body fat, and it's just a seamless thing. No more energy crashes, no more mood swings, no more outrageous hunger, no more having to eat to the clock. It's a very freeing, very liberating way of doing things. So as far as like personal results that you got from this approach,
Hmm.
what have you experienced thus far? I mean, I've seen you posted some before and after photos. I know you're not a huge fan of using those with your clients,
Yes.
but what kind of changes have you made? And while we're at it, why are you not uh, into the whole idea of doing before and after transformations with clients? Because that's something that I really do recommend that people keep a record. And yes, I use
Mhm.
those for promotional purposes because it's a testimony. It's a visual.
Absolutely.
So powerful. But
It
what
is
kind of
very
changes have you made?
powerful. It is very powerful.
Right.
I've never been obese, but I always
Okay.
been overweight. Okay. So I was able to lose 40 pounds when I started this way of eating. And let me tell
Nice.
you, I did not lose any weight when I first started. It took me about a month to lose a single pound. Old me, because of my old diet mentality, I would have already thrown in the towel. I would have been like, forget this, this is not working. Let's move on to the next shiny object. However, because I was researching and reading about this way of eating, and I was so in love with what I was learning, that this is such a healthy way to eat, I'm not going to stop. And so my focus shifted to the health benefits of being in ketosis, not so much the weight loss. Even though I came in for weight loss, I stayed because of the health benefits. Okay. Yes, I joined in because it was a gym, it was a 6-week challenge. Count me in, but I didn't lose any weight for the first month. Again, all me would have just said, this is not working. But because I was so in awe of the health benefits, like my appetite suppression was like almost immediate. But once I started losing the weight, it literally melted off. I mean, it was so quickly. And the interesting part of it that really made me stick with this, that it wasn't just fast weight loss as in the past. I have lost weight before many times. Remember, I have a PhD in yo-yo dieting. You name it, I've done it. So losing the weight is not news to me. I've lost 30 pounds at a time in like 3 months. But the difference with this time around is that my body actually changed. I wasn't just a smaller version of myself. And what does that tell you? My body composition was changing. I was actually losing body fat versus just getting skinny at the cost of losing muscle, which we know we don't want that. No bueno. Note to self, my friends, especially if you're females, you don't want to lose weight at the cost of muscle. So I was
Absolutely.
starting seeing a 6-pack. I was like really like looking shredded. I was like so super happy. So I was sold. But get this, because of my understanding at that point, because first of all, I had no nutrition understanding to that point when I started researching this, I self-diagnosed as a diabetic. How does that happen? I got myself a glucometer because, you know, in ketosis world, in the core low carb community, in the metabolic health community, we are very glucose insulin centric. It's one of the biggest things that we track. So I started tracking my blood sugars on a regular basis, and I was shocked to find that my fasting glucose were ranging in the 140s, 150s. How does that happen? I go to the doctors every single year. Why did my doctor not give me the heads up? Listen, your blood sugars are going out of range, because they did go out of range, even though they were not in the diabetic ranges. Like, I remember clearly the last time I spoke, because I fired her after that, my last glucose numbers with her was like 110. I'm like, Doc, how come my blood sugars are going up? And all she said was like, it's still normal. It's age, just lose a couple of pounds.
Right.
That's all she said. But mind you, we're only checking glucose once a year. She never even ran an A1C. Had she run an A1C, I can bet you I would have been diagnosed with either prediabetes or diabetes.
Well, I have a little saying, when people tell me they're pre-diabetic, pre-diabetes is also preventable diabetes.
Hey, I
And
like that.
it's a decision as to which direction you're going to go in. But a lot of people just accept the diagnosis and they say, oh, I'm diabetic, or I'm going to become diabetic. Go ahead and just get started on the medication. I've helped several people to get off of all their medications that they were on. Full-blown type 2 diabetics that have been in that condition for years, that had accepted this diagnosis, that had accepted the idea that it's progressive and
Yep.
chronic
Yes.
and
Yes.
irreversible. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So knowing what a powerful tool nutrition is, and exercise, I know we're going to get into that too, because that's the 1-2 punch.
Yes.
But a couple of things that you said there that just really resonated with me. And with the weight loss versus fat loss thing, I have the good fortune to have access to an in-body machine to do
Okay.
scans and
Yes.
body composition. So I can show them in black and white, listen, you lost 2 pounds of body fat, you gained a pound of muscle. On paper, it looks like you only lost 1 pound, but your percentage dropped. This is a much better outcome than just losing 2 or 3 pounds and half of it was muscle, which is the typical weight loss diet. The whole eat less, move more philosophy. It doesn't work in the real world, first of all, but half the weight that people lose typically is from muscle. And you said yourself, the more muscle, the better, okay? Because that's metabolism, that's health, that's your fitness,
Longevity. Mm-hmm.
longevity. Absolutely, it's the organ of longevity. And we do want to live a long, healthy life and be strong and fit. We're going to do that if we have more muscle. Not everyone aspires to be a bodybuilder, I understand, and women especially have a harder time. It's coming around, but they typically have a harder time embracing the idea of lift weight to lose weight. But that's something you've done yourself and that you encourage your clients to do, I'm sure, along
Absolutely.
with the
I sound like
nutrition.
a broken record when I speak to my clients about that. It's like muscle, 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 muscle. Keep your muscle, keep your muscle, keep your muscle.
Right.
Is all I talk about. And going back to why I don't post before and after pictures is because, like I told you, I have a PhD in yo-yo dieting. I have yo-yo dieted my entire life. I am your typical diet culture bunny. Okay. And it pretty much ruined my life. I can guarantee you the reason why I became a diabetic is because of my lack of metabolic flexibility from chronically undereating and chronic dieting, which results in muscle mass loss. And when you lose your muscle mass, you open the window to become metabolically unflexible, because going back to blood sugar management and metabolic health and how important blood sugar management is, the less muscle mass you have, the more dependent on glucose you become. You lose that flexibility, because here you are, telling you that glucose is your main source of fuel. You have to eat the glucose, particularly if you work out. So you ingesting all of this glucose, but then you have nowhere to store it, because your muscles is your biggest glucose sink in the body. So if you want to have a more flexible eating style, you don't want to be tied down to low carb for the rest of your life, which there's, by the way, nothing wrong doing that. But if you enjoy cycling in and out, and or if low carb for some reason is not sustainable for you because it's too restrictive, even more so, your focus should be to increase that capacity for your body to store glucose, and that is muscle tissue.
I agree 100%. And I think this is a great segue into the different types of ketogenic diets there are, because one size doesn't fit all with this approach. This was a trial and error for me personally. Fortunately, I worked this out on my own before I started doing this with clients. But I want to say, you said cycling. So let me just mention that the type of ketogenic diet that I'm a proponent of is known as a cyclical ketogenic diet. So that is cycling in and out of ketosis on a weekly basis. Now, the idea when keto was super popular, like 2016, 2017, it was one of these approaches that was an all or nothing type thing. And this is a recipe for failure that I see with a lot of people, because when they have that all or nothing mentality, anything that deviates from that program is perceived as a failure. They think,
Absolutely.
the first time you eat some carbs, oh, I knew I couldn't do it, I quit, and then just go back to what they were doing before. So I want to make sure people understand how all of this works, because something you said about storage. Okay, so the carbohydrate can be stored in the muscle tissue. It can be used as energy, and it can also be stored as body fat. But the more muscle you have, that is a reservoir to catch some incoming glucose. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing ketogenic for the rest of your life or even long term. It takes about 2.5, 3 days to get into ketosis. What I like to do is stay in ketosis for 2 or 3 days and then have some carb meals on the weekend in a window. So it's not like a 48-hour binge, but there's an opportunity there to refill the glycogen, because the type of training that I recommend is mostly strength training, which that is a glucose demanding activity. I keep the cardio pretty low so that we're not wasting sugar or burning sugar and inadvertently not tapping into our body fat. So a couple of things that burning sugar does. One is it will cause you to be hungrier later for more sugar, and that's another recipe for sabotage. So keep your cardio kind of moderate, burn more fat, but you need that glucose as energy. Now, the body has a way of converting some protein to glucose, which we'll get into that distinction. Glucose and carbohydrate are not necessarily the same exact thing, but refilling that tank once a week, now you got the energy to train again. And another thing that I learned early on about all of this, when you begin on a ketogenic diet or lifestyle, initially that's going to improve insulin sensitivity, okay? Can reverse insulin resistance up to a point. If you stay on a super low carb intake indefinitely, it actually backfires and it causes the muscle cells to become more insulin resistant, because your body's trying to divert all the glucose coming in for brain function. So that's the opposite of what we want. We want what you were talking about, metabolic flexibility. We want the body to be able to process and use that glucose as energy, and to be able to use stored body fat as energy when there's no glucose around. So that's metabolic flexibility in a nutshell. The style of ketogenic diet that you're typically doing, is it the clinical model? Is it more like a higher protein performance type keto, or what do you
Yes.
practice and what do you recommend?
When I first started, again, it was when keto blew up. It was 2017. Even though I got introduced to it in 2015, I tuned that lady out. I'm like, this is not healthy. But then 12 years later, and I joined this gym, and that was what they were endorsing. I didn't have any guidance. I got a pamphlet. These are the foods to avoid. These are the foods to eat. So looking back, it was more the traditional, clinical. It was really high fat. I mean, I was that person eating a stick of butter a day. That was me. Okay. And it worked. I'm not going to lie. It worked. I mean, I lost a lot of weight. I mean, it's the thinnest and leanest I've ever been. I want to say 2 years into it, I got introduced to fasting. And then I think that was where things really started then to not work as well for me. But I was so obsessed with the lifestyle. I took on that identity. I am a keto person, which I recommend people not do. Because one, you take on that identity, like you said before or alluded to before. If you happen to go off plan, either intentionally or unintentionally, oh boy, that guilt and shame is real. And then you get into these binging cycles and the effort, I already messed up this meal, might as well just end the rest of the meal. And then you just create disordered eating. And that's one of the things that I'm so cautious with, both with keto and intermittent fasting, because I'm very ginger to diet culture and falling under, disordered eating. And that's another reason why, and I don't think I've actually straight answer your question directly about before and after pictures, because I identified as that dieting bunny, and I feel like it ruined my life, it ruined my metabolism. I don't want to contribute with my messaging to diet culture. So I feel like doing before and after pictures, especially in the context of advertising a program, a 12-week program, look at the before and after, it sends the wrong message to the audience that I can guarantee you're going to lose 20 pounds. Because it's not just the pictures, but also the message behind the picture. And I see it every time. I'm pretty sure you've seen it too. Lose 15 pounds in 12 weeks. How can you ever guarantee 15-pound weight loss in 12 weeks? You could, but how can you guarantee? How do you really know that someone can lose up to 15 pounds in 3 months?
The metric that I use, the safe, sustainable approach to fat loss, is no more than 1% of your current body weight per week. That's the max. And that's to ensure that you're not losing muscle. If you're having to sacrifice that muscle to lose weight, that's not going to go well. So
But
slow
they
down
don't
a
tell
little bit.
us, but these messages, these posts that you see, these advertisements don't go
Right,
into that nuance. All they do is post it before and after pictures, sign up for my 12-week programs, and this can be you.
right,
And
right.
then when I'm not that person 3 weeks later,
Mhm.
then I did something wrong.
Yeah, right. I see what you mean. That makes you think that you're the problem, that it works
And
so well for all these other people. Why am I not getting the
And
same
the
result?
fact that we are so centric on looks is another reason why I don't like it. My mission is to help people create a lifetime rooted in wellness, be healthy, prioritize health, and the weight loss will come.
I agree. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'm the type of person that will use 1,000 words to tell you what's in the picture, but I do share my before and after photos because it's an instant connection with someone and they get it and they say, oh, well, this guy must know what he's talking about, right? So first
Or it
question,
could be possible, but
yeah,
because again, is the message behind it. I mean,
yeah,
and again, I used to do that at the beginning
yeah,
when I didn't know better, I
I
mean, for
see.
me, as you grow in understanding and experience working with people, you change. Like I used to be that keto evangelist.
Oh, yeah,
I used to be that person. If it's not keto, there's no other way. Do not talk to
right,
me about anything else. But
right.
you continue to grow in understanding, you continue to grow in your academic studies, you continue to work more specifically and importantly, in my opinion, experience working with people.
Mm.
And then you have no choice but to shift your thinking. So I was that person and now I'm more flexible. Keto is not the end all be all. It's a
Oh no,
great,
it's just a
great,
tool. It's a
great,
tool in the
great,
toolkit.
amazing tool. And I think everybody, most everybody, could benefit from doing that retraining of your metabolism, reminding your body, hey, body, I know you've been burning glucose for the last 4 decades, but let me remind you, my friend, that you can run on fats as well, especially if you have body fat to lose. If that is the goal of yours, why not? Just sensitize that mitochondria to learn and efficiently burn fat in the absence of your eating.
Yep.
And the magic happens. The
Mm.
magic happens.
Yep. And I was going to say earlier, when I do show those before and after photos, the main question I get is how long did it take? They want to know, okay, how long am I going to have to do this before I can go back to what I was doing before? I think is what they're asking me. The correct answer is it has taken me every day of my life
I love that.
the day that I decided to make that change, because there's no going back. Once you've decided on a result, there's a real reason to do it. You've got a plan in place, you've got a team, you've got a framework, some coaching, all of that. Those are all things that will point you in the right direction. But once you're there, you got to keep doing it. If whatever it took to get there is so restrictive that you can't maintain it for longer than 6 months, what's the point? That's where that yo-yo diet
Yeah.
thing comes into place, and people end up worse off than they were before. So I'm about creating permanent lifestyle change, and I know you're on the same page with that, just in the
Absolutely.
conversations we've had before.
You see, I tell my clients this. That's why I fall on physiology. Once you learn how the body works and utilizes energy, you don't have to you don't have to have a doctorate in nutrition or metabolism to know this. But do know the basics. Do understand the basics. And once you understand that, there's no camp. You cannot be influenced by any camp. You cannot be influenced by the vegans. You cannot be influenced by the low carbers. You fall on, how does the body work? Second, what is my current state of health? And third, what is my goal? And then you create a lifestyle that's going to be sustainable based on those three markers.
I agree 100%. So just in the few moments that we have left here, I know you've got to go. You have a consultation or a client who's waiting. Um, what is your challenge? Is this a group challenge that you're doing right now, or is this just for your own benefit?
So let's tell the story, because this is how we reconnected.
Right, right.
I did low carb for 6 years. I was strict keto for 4, and then I started introducing carbs 3 years ago. And I still call myself low carb-ish. And because of my physical activity, I very easily cycle in and out of ketosis, even eating 150 grams of carbs a day. But the last year, perimenopause, I'm 46 almost next month. So, and some injuries where my physical activity decreased, homegirl started to get fluffy. And not only fluffy, but I started to have a lot of aches and pains.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing this high fiber, high protein approach, because fiber is the holy grail for gut health, so I wanted to give myself that opportunity to, got gut issues. I have an autoimmune condition, which automatically predisposes me to a lot of inflammation. Let me give this high fiber thing a try. And I was eating 40 to 50 grams of fiber a day, oh my gosh, but did that break my autoimmune condition? It just
Oh, yeah.
fired me up. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so tired of feeling sick and tired. I'm like, okay, fine. It's time for me to go back to keto and do that for, to cycle another phase of keto. So April 1st was my first day of going back to keto. So like when I first did it 3 years ago, it was, I did the clinical, 70%, 75% of my calories came from fat. Because again, my understanding, my studies, my academic certifications have taught me better now. I prioritize protein for several reasons. My history of metabolic disease as a diabetic, my being a female, and my being a female in midlife. I have to prioritize muscle. So I always going to prioritize muscle. So I am doing now a high protein, low carb, moderate fat. I don't, most days I may get to 100 grams of fat, where before I could do 272 grams of fat.
Yeah,
And
it's not hard to do if you're eating butter now.
oh yes, so delicious too. So
Mm.
now my weekly average for protein is about 166 grams of protein.
Per day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm keeping my carbs below 40 grams.
Awesome.
So that's
Yeah.
what I do. That works for me. I haven't been as physically active in terms of the weight room because of injuries, but I have adopted the art of walking. I'm a long distance walker. I walk 12 miles every Sunday. I walk average 5 to 8 miles during the week, a couple of times a week. And that's actually very helpful for me to actually create ketones, because when you eat high protein, your ketones tend to be a little low. So to boost, it helps me boost off my ketone production, all that walking that I do.
Okay. There's nuances to all of it, but
Oh,
it sounds
yes.
like we're both on the same page with a lot of that. I started experimenting with these different ancestral approaches about 10 years ago. I tried the whole, measure everything, balance, trying to keep track of calories and macros and all that. I prefer to do it this way because you don't really have to be, once you're aware of the foods that are on the menu and what's not on the menu, and you just prioritize the right things, the appetite self-regulates, and the numbers, the amount just tends to take care of itself for the most part. But everything like anything from a paleo diet to keto diet to intermittent fasting to carnivore, that all falls under the umbrella of ancestral approach. And
Yeah.
it's the way human beings are supposed to function. We've lost track of this in the modern world
But
because
what
look,
is the common denominator?
yeah, higher protein, lower carbohydrate, and real food. Those are the main things,
And then yeah,
right?
you said the
Right.
keyword is the
Yeah.
elimination of the added sugars and the highly
Hmm.
processed palatable foods.
Hmm. And
And
that's what.
in fact, if you compare all of the lifestyles out there, I,
Hmm.
name the label, vegan,
Right.
vegetarian,
Right.
pescatarian, whatever, which is one of the reasons why I don't understand the diet wars, because we all have something in common. It's just like religion. I don't care who you believe in, but we have something in common. We believe in a higher being. In nutrition, our common denominator is we believe in prioritizing real whole foods most of the time and eliminating processed, hyperpalatable, nutrient deprived of fiber, deprived of protein, deprived of water, the three things that are needed to keep you satiated. Because if you're not satiated, you're going to continue to look for food because hunger
Right.
always wins.
I love it.
Hunger always wins.
So simple and perfect description. Ida, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. If people are wanting to find you online, where should they look?
Well, I am on Instagram, the Wellness Room LLC.
Okay.
I have a course, I run one-on-one programs, I run group coaching programs. And this is my passion. My mission in life is one, to get people off the dieting train,
Yeah.
get people
Well,
off dieting culture. I don't want to contribute to diet culture. I don't want people to create disordered eating. I want them to fall in love with taking care of their bodies and feeling their best.
right.
Feel your
And,
best. And
and
the result will automatically be better body composition. And I mean, chase health and the body composition will come along for the ride.
you are in the Tampa, Florida area, but
I'm in the Tampa area, but I
you
work
work
with
with
clients
clients by remote.
in
You work with remote clients as well,
remote
online
only,
coaching.
actually. Most of my
Okay.
clients are not even in the Florida, in the state of Florida.
Well, I'm willing to say, that you and I are on the same page here because it's about the well-being of the client. We're offering very similar services here. Most people would say on the surface, we should be competing with each other. I don't subscribe to that competition. I think the cooperation model wins out because some people are going to resonate with you, some people are going to resonate with me. But look, we're working together as a team here, even though we're in separate places at different times. It's the same end result. I'm trying to re-educate people about proper nutrition and training. That created a lifestyle for me where, I wasn't happy. I was weighing over 250 pounds. I had high blood pressure. And the mainstream sick care model, as I like to call it,
Yeah,
I was a candidate for medication. And I could have easily fallen down that rabbit hole. But thankfully, I began to research a little bit and found there are other ways to do this naturally, and it set me on a different uh, path in life. So, and that path crossed with you for some reason. We're here working together, trying to help people, trying to get people healthy. So, I appreciate you coming by. It's great to talk to you again. And you and I are going to collaborate again later. We're doing an Instagram live. So if people follow that Instagram account that we gave out there in the notes, and I will link that in the show notes below. They can catch that as well.
thank
And we'll continue this keto conversation.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. We are doing great work. And as you can tell, We are very passionate about it.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.